Chapter 4706. Di Bei-chun looked indifferent. Let them say what they want. He didn't even bother to explain the truth that was about to be revealed. The more the other party talked, the more painful his face would be. Di Xiaofeng was originally worried that Di Bei-chun and Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't be able to withstand such ridicule and sarcasm. After all, being stared at by so many people all of a sudden, anyone would feel uncomfortable. However, when he looked at them, he realized that his worries were unnecessary. Whether it was Di Bei-chun or Bailey Hongzhuang, it was as if nothing had happened. Obviously, they simply did not put these things in their eyes. Di Xiaofeng, I think your Di family is really finished this time. You can't even send out such a person. You can't be hoping that this woman can help you get a spot, right? The Jun family's second young master, Jun Shitao, mocked. He really felt that the Di family was a joke. The dignified Di family has fallen to this point. I really feel sorry for you. Di Xiaofeng stepped forward and said, You don't need to worry about this. I advise you not to be too proud too early. So what if you found an ally? You're jumping around like a clown. Can't you be quiet? Hearing this, Jun Shitao's face became a little ugly, but he still said coldly, Continue to hold on. Let's see how long you can hold on. Then open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Otherwise, you'll think of ways to act shamelessly when you lose to us. Di Xiaofeng sneered. When these words came out, the Jun family was stunned at first. Then, as if they had heard the world's biggest joke, they laughed loudly. Ha, did I hear wrong? They want to beat us in this situation? This is simply a fool's dream. Xiao Sou and the others who were not far away couldn't help but sneer after hearing this. This was a complete joke. Di Xiaofeng is already panicking. Xiao Sou's eyes were full of ridicule. All of this was the Di family's choice. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame themselves. After all, their Xiao clan had a grade 8 alchemist. Moreover, this grade 8 alchemist grade was relatively high. Therefore, they were not worried about the quota at all. At this moment, a figure walked up to Di Xiaofeng and put a hand on his shoulder. He said with great familiarity, Xiaofeng, what's going on? Di Xiaofeng smiled when he saw who it was. Murong Jing, you're here. Looking at Di Xiaofeng's smiling face, Murong Jing couldn't laugh. You sure have a big heart. Now that you've fallen into such a situation, you can still laugh? What the hell is going on? However, Di Xiaofeng did not care about Murong Jing's worries. Instead, he pulled him to Di Bei-chun and introduced him. Second brother, let me introduce you. This is my good brother, the eldest young master of the Murong family, Murong Jing. Murong Jing, this is my second brother, Di Bei-chun. Hearing this, Murong Jing looked at Di Bei-chun and smiled. Just by looking at his appearance, I can tell that he's your biological brother. You brothers' genes are really abnormal. Di Bei-chun smiled. Nice to meet you. No need to be so polite with him. Di Xiaofeng chuckled. I've been hanging out with this kid since we were young. We're all brothers. Murong Jing nodded. You're Xiaofeng's brother, so you're my brother. We'll be on the same side in the future. Chapter 4707. First, tell me, what's the situation with you guys? Why do I feel like the Di family has changed a lot in the time that I haven't seen you? Murong Jing looked worried. He had arrived a little late today, but the moment he arrived, he heard all kinds of unfavorable rumors about the Di family. He couldn't help but be stunned. He had only been in seclusion for a while, but he didn't expect so many things to happen. You have to think carefully. If there's a way, it's better to cancel the bet. If the Di family can't get a single spot this time, then it'll be really bad. Looking at Murong Jing's concerned look, Di Xiaofeng felt a trace of warmth in his heart. Ever since the Xiao family and the Jun family formed an alliance, plus the news that the alchemist was poached, many cultivators who were usually in contact with him were not as close as before. Even though he knew that the Jun family's plan wouldn't succeed, he couldn't help but sigh at the hypocrisy of the world after noticing all this. Through this matter, he had seen through a lot of people. Murong Jing still treated him as usual, which made him feel a little touched. We won't cancel it, Di Bei-chun said. Murong Jing was slightly stunned, then helplessly sighed. In fact, he also understood that this kind of thing couldn't be said out loud. If he went back on his word now, it would be very embarrassing. Forget it. Our family has a good alchemist. If we can get a few more spots, I'll think of a way to ask the family for a few more spots. It's just that the competition this time is more intense, so I don't know how many spots we can get. Murong Jing's face was full of worry. The competition for the spots in the Immortal Cloud's secret territory was extremely terrifying. Genius alchemists were piled up, so it wasn't easy to stand out. Good brother, thank you for your good intentions. Di Xiaofeng patted Murong Jing's shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't worry, my sister-in-law isn't simple." Damn, Murong Jing was speechless. What time is it now? You're still so calm? I'm worried for you. What's the hurry? The competition hasn't even started yet. You'll know when you watch, Di Xiaofeng said with a smile. Di Beichen's lips curled into a faint smile. His eyes met with Bailey Hongzhuang's, filled with determination and trust. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head quietly. She would do her best to help the Di family get a spot. Although there were still ninth-grade alchemists among the alchemists participating in the competition, she was naturally no match for them. Fortunately, there were very few ninth-grade alchemists. Among the eighth-grade alchemists, she was still very confident that she could obtain a good result. After all, this was the upper world. There were as many powerhouses and geniuses as there were clouds in the sky. So, it was almost impossible for the younger generation to come out on top. However, as long as they could win over the Jun family's quota, they would be able to hold their heads high. When Alchemist Qin noticed Di Yunhe, Di Hongyun, and Bailey Hongzhuang around him, he couldn't help but sneer. Di Yunhe, are you really not afraid of losing face by bringing such a little girl up here? In my opinion, this little girl probably hasn't even reached Tier 5 Alchemist, right? Di Yunhe coldly looked at Alchemist Qin. You don't have to worry about that. Seeing this, Alchemist Qin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. I heard that the alchemists in the lower world aren't very skilled. You're really brave to dare to participate in this competition. Chapter 4708. Bailey Hongzhuang was originally very dissatisfied with Medicine Master Qin. If it weren't for this guy, the Di family wouldn't have fallen into such a predicament. Originally, Medicine Master Qin had behaved himself, but he had provoked her time and time again. If she didn't teach him a lesson, then she wouldn't be Bailey Hongzhuang. I disdain talking to people who don't keep their promises. Her cold voice didn't hide her disgust and disdain. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly glanced at Medicine Master Qin as if she had seen something disgusting. He was actually looked down upon by a little girl. Medicine Master Qin felt ashamed and angry. This is clearly because the Di family can't afford it. What's wrong with me leaving? Humans die for wealth just as birds die for food. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with his actions. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. If everyone was like this, then there would be no such thing as credibility in this world. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone present felt the same. The Di family had been tricked by the Jun family and Medicine Master Qin. Everyone understood this. Although they didn't say it out loud, they still felt some disdain for such a method. As far as I know, you didn't even negotiate with the Di family. You directly colluded with the Jun family, didn't you? You better stick to the big tree that is the Jun family. Otherwise, any family that invites an alchemist like you will be really unlucky. Who knows if you'll collude with other families behind their backs. Bailey Hongzhuang's glib tongue directly poked at Medicine Master Qin's weak spot. He was actually a little worried about this point, but after thinking about it carefully, he felt that it wasn't a big problem. However, now that Bailey Hongzhuang had said it out loud, he realized that something was wrong. When he turned his head, he found that everyone around him was secretly nodding their heads. They all had the same expression on their faces. This little girl is right. What Medicine Master Qin did this time was indeed despicable. In any case, I won't dare to ask Medicine Master Qin to do anything in the future. Didn't you see how badly the Di family was tricked this time? If they hadn't invited Alchemist Qin, this wouldn't have happened. Although the Di family was very unlucky this time, at least they cleared the mine for us. Thinking about it, the alchemist our family hired was very good. At least he wasn't poached by our opponents. In a short period of time, everyone changed the topic as they found the source of this matter. When Di Yunhee and the others saw Alchemist Qin's face turn red, they felt a burst of joy in their hearts. These days, Medicine Master Qin had been living a carefree life, and they had long disliked him. Now that the second madam had said this, Medicine Master Qin's future would probably be difficult. "You stinky girl, what nonsense are you talking about?" Medicine Master Qin cursed angrily. He didn't expect that this girl would cause such a commotion the moment she opened her mouth. If he had known earlier, he would never have taken the initiative to speak to this girl. Whether it's nonsense or not, everyone knows very well. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged and ignored Medicine Master Qin. Instead, she turned her attention to the judge's table nearby. Now, let's draw the content of the first round. As soon as the president of the Alchemist Guild finished speaking, the president of the Radiant Guild took out a piece of paper from a sealed box. Then, he read out the content of the piece of paper. The first round, refining medicinal ingredients. Chapter 4709. Refining medicinal herbs was an essential skill for an alchemist. However, every alchemist's extraction of medicinal herbs was different. The better the extraction of medicinal herbs, the better the effect of refining pills. However, sometimes, even if the extraction of medicinal herbs was slightly inferior, it would not affect the alchemist's reputation and strength. Now that the assessment was about the extraction of medicinal herbs, they would definitely take out medicinal herbs that were very difficult to extract for the assessment. In this way, many alchemists' ability to extract medicinal herbs would be revealed. After all, when refining pills, there were many medicinal herbs that were not difficult to extract other than those that were difficult to extract. The medicinal herb to be extracted this time is the Ironheart fruit. If the extraction rate reaches 60%, you'll pass. If you can't reach 60%, you'll be eliminated. Following the Light Association's president's words, everyone also understood the requirements of this assessment. I didn't expect to be extracted from the Ironheart fruit. This thing is the most difficult to extract. Basically, everyone feels a headache just looking at it. This Ironheart fruit has a hard exterior, and it's very difficult for flames to soften it. However, its interior is very fragile. Once the flames are too strong, the essence inside will instantly turn into nothingness. Not only that, after the exterior is melted, there will be a lot of residue in the essence. The extraction is the residue in the essence. The difficulty can be imagined. Therefore, this Ironheart fruit is something that everyone is unwilling to extract. 60% seems to be a low requirement, but in fact, among the thousands of alchemists, I'm afraid that less than half of them can reach 60%. This alchemy competition is indeed as difficult as before. The crowd, who didn't know much about the Ironheart fruit, finally understood after hearing the discussion. Their faces were filled with horror. They did not expect this medicinal herb to be so difficult to extract. Many people would be eliminated in the first round. Some alchemists who did not have much confidence in obtaining a ranking had their expressions become extremely ugly after hearing this question. The last trace of hope was directly extinguished. It's actually an assessment of the Ironheart fruit. This time, those who are not strong enough will be directly exposed. Xiao Sou's face was filled with joy and pride as she looked straight at Bailey Hongzhuang. She already hated this woman who was playing to the gallery and had snatched her light vine. Later, when Bailey Hongzhuang was directly eliminated, she would take good care of her and let the younger generation know that this grandstanding and overconfident woman was a woman. Jun Lingxuan naturally knew who Xiao Sou was referring to. He immediately smiled and said, "She's just asking for humiliation. Let's just wait and see." As he said this, Jun Lingxuan took a deep look at Di Beichun and Di Xiaofeng. "Maybe the 3 alchemists of your family will be eliminated in the first round." Di Beichun chuckled, his handsome face relaxed. "Instead of worrying about us, why don't you take good care of your alchemist Qin? He doesn't look too good either." Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan was slightly taken aback. His gaze shifted slightly, and as expected, he saw Alchemist Qin's hesitant and somewhat helpless expression on his face. His heart couldn't help but thump. Alchemist Qin was an 8th-grade alchemist. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have any problems with this kind of thing, right? Chapter 4710. Thinking that he might be ostracized by everyone in the future, his mood was already very bad. Therefore, he only hoped that he could shine in this alchemy competition. Only in this way could he eliminate the previous impact. He didn't expect that he would be refining the iron heart fruit. If it was something else, he still had some confidence to get an excellent result. However, the refinement of the iron heart fruit was considered his weak point. He was afraid that it would affect his results. Young Master Jun, you can rest assured. Xiao So slowly said, Alchemist Qin has already advanced to the 8th level. He is quite famous even among the 8th level alchemists. There will definitely be no problem. Jun Lingxuan also nodded. He also had some understanding of Alchemist Qin's strength. He would definitely be able to help the family win a place. Soon, there was an iron heart fruit in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. The iron heart fruit was completely black. It was very hard like a stone in the hand. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the iron heart fruit in front of her. Her delicate and elegant face was surrounded by a confident luster. Her refinement of medicinal herbs had always been very high. The teaching of the Chaos Ring was very useful. Thinking back, when she first learned in the Chaos Ring, besides identifying medicinal herbs, the first thing she practiced was the refinement of medicinal herbs. Not only was the Chaos Ring powerful, but the requirements were also particularly high. Therefore, she spent a lot of energy and time on refining medicinal herbs. The Ironheart fruit was indeed difficult to refine. Unfortunately, the medicinal herbs she used to practice refining were the Ironheart fruit. The first round begins now. With the command, many alchemists on the competition stage began to act immediately. This round of assessment not only required the refinement of medicinal herbs, but also the refining time. Because the number of participating alchemists was really too many, even if it was only a very short time, the rankings would be different. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally knew this, so she didn't delay. After carefully looking at the Ironheart fruit, she looked at the alchemy furnace in front of her. After confirming that there were no problems, she began to refine the Ironheart fruit. The alchemists on the competition stage began to refine, and the spectator area was very lively. Everyone was paying attention to their own alchemists and the alchemists of other families. Under these circumstances, even if everyone had more confidence in their own alchemists, they couldn't help but be a little nervous. Bailey Hongzhuang methodically refined the Ironheart fruit, carefully controlling the temperature in the furnace. These were not unfamiliar to her. As the temperature in the pill furnace gradually rose, the Ironheart fruit that had been quiet and motionless also underwent some changes. The surface began to melt gradually, but the process was very slow. Bailey Hongzhuang was very patient because she knew that this was a slow process. When she lost her patience and tried to speed up the process, it was very likely that she would fail. Time passed slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang refined it over and over again. As long as there was time, she would do her best. This was because she understood the importance of the quota to the D family. Furthermore, the more cultivators the D family sent, the more advantage they would have in the Immortal Cloud secret realm. When she thought about how the D family was now being targeted by the Jun family and the Xiao family, she felt very unhappy. He had to teach these despicable fellows a lesson. In essence, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beiqian were very similar. Chapter 4711. There was only one Ironheart fruit, which meant that each alchemist only had one chance. Not only that, but time was limited. Even if there were 2 Ironheart fruits, everyone had no time to refine a second time. Gradually, some alchemists began to stop. When they finished refining, they directly pressed the button next to the table, indicating that they had finished refining. One by one, the alchemists finished refining. Bailey Hongzhuang was not slow either. After trying her best to refine to the best extent she could, she pressed the button and then waited on the side. When she stopped, most of the alchemists present were still refining. Xiao So had been paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang from the corner of her eyes. When she saw that she had finished refining so quickly, A trace of surprise appeared in her eyes. She thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would fail in refining. She did not expect that she would succeed. Elder sister, don't be fooled by Bailey Hongzhuang's pretense now. In my opinion, the purity of her refining must be very poor. Didn't you see that Ouyang Jifeng hasn't stopped yet? Xiao Sudong said. He had a good relationship with Xiao So, so he naturally knew about Di Beichen. Therefore, he was also full of disgust for Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. They dared to bully his elder sister. They were simply courting death. Listening to Xiao Sudong's words, Xiao So subconsciously looked at Ouyang Jifeng, who was not far away. However, just as she turned her head, Ouyang Jifeng also finished refining. She immediately nodded secretly. Bailey Hongzhuang could not be compared with a genius like Ouyang Jifeng. She thought that she was just pretending to be calm at this moment. Maybe she did not even reach 60%. Ouyang Jifeng also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Among the alchemists present, they were the youngest. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang was even younger than him. Coupled with her stunning appearance, he still paid some attention to her. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had finished refining, he was also a little surprised. However, he kept his doubts to himself. When the result came out later, he would know the result. When Alchemist Qin stopped refining, he immediately looked at the three alchemists of the Di family next to him. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had finished refining, he was also stunned. When he turned his head and saw that Di Yunhe and Di Hengyun were still refining, he was relieved. From the beginning to the end, he did not take Bailey Hongzhuang seriously. As for Di Yunhe and Di Hengyun, he knew that they were still level 7 alchemists. They could only refine the iron heart fruit to an intermediate level. It was impossible for them to achieve a good result. This time, the Jun family would definitely win against the Di family. While Alchemist Qin was secretly proud, Di Yunhe and Di Hengyun were also full of surprise. In the aspect of refining medicinal materials, they were also very weak in the past, especially refining the iron heart fruit. It was really too difficult. However, a few days ago, they happened to ask Bailey Hongzhuang about refining the iron heart fruit. Bailey Hongzhuang's answer and method were refreshing. Today, they happened to refine the iron heart fruit. Naturally, they were very happy. That was because the results of their refinement today were much better than before. Time's up. Chapter 47:12. At the moment when the time was announced, some pharmacists who had yet to finish refining also had to stop. Therefore, immediately after, there was a burnt smell of medicinal herbs failing to be refined. The failed pharmacists were all dejected, and their faces were full of unwillingness. It should be known that it was not that many alchemists did not succeed in refining, but that they wanted to obtain a better ranking, so they continued to refine further. Unfortunately, they did not pay attention to the time, so they directly failed and lost the qualifications to continue the competition. At this time, the Pharmacist Association's president stood up. Because the number of pharmacists participating in the competition is extremely large, the apparatus will be used to judge first. The black light on the table is extremely unqualified, the white light is qualified, the red light is good, and the golden light is excellent. As for the specific score, it will be scored by several judges. After the 3 rounds of competition, the score will be clear. Hearing this, everyone nodded. If it were in normal times, it would be enough to just use the apparatus to score, but there were too many now, so the scoring needed to be very detailed. Otherwise, it would be difficult to rank. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard that the apparatus would actually be used to score, she was secretly surprised. The upper realm really had a lot of means. With the apparatus to score, it would save a lot of time. Otherwise, with 5 pharmacists scoring one by one, who knows how long it would take with so many people. According to her judgment, the apparatus's scoring was probably a screening. Those with lower grades basically did not need to be scored because they could not enter the top 100 at all. Immediately after, Bailey Hongzhuang felt rays of light shining, and a kind of breath quietly swept past the white porcelain bottle next to her. Obviously, it was checking the purity. Suddenly, rays of black light appeared on the competition stage. The black light shining in front of the table meant that they were not qualified. The pharmacists in front of the table all showed dejected expressions when they saw this. All the wishful thinking was useless here. Standing on the stage, they might not see clearly enough, but everyone in the stands found that this was only the first round, and more than half of the pharmacists were eliminated. I didn't expect this iron heart fruit to be so difficult to refine. The pharmacists present are not bad, but so many were eliminated. In fact, it is very difficult to refine the iron heart fruit to 60%. Most pharmacists can't achieve it, so this result is very normal. The pharmacists present had a deep understanding. Generally speaking, being able to refine to 60% was already very good. It was only because everyone here was a genius pharmacist that such a standard was set. Almost everyone believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would be eliminated, but when Xiao Sou and others found that the black light in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's table did not light, their expressions changed. Xiaofeng, I didn't expect your sister-in-law to have some skills. There was a trace of interest on Murong Jing's face. He thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed a bit messy, but at this moment, after seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was stronger than many alchemists, his thoughts had changed. Di Xiaofeng rolled his eyes at him and said, "What are you saying? You." Chapter 47:13. According to their judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely the one who would be eliminated immediately. However, Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't been eliminated even though so many alchemists had been eliminated. That was unbelievable. How could this be? The same thought flashed through the minds of the cultivators of the Jun family and the Xiao family. This was already incredible. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was really an alchemy genius? That was impossible. After the eliminated cultivators left one after another, the competition platform suddenly became much more spacious. Then, rays of white light began to shine. Medicine Master Qin's gaze fell on Di Yunhe and the others. According to his judgment, the three of them had stopped at the qualified level. However, after the white light stopped shining, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Yunhe, and Di Yunhe's table didn't shine. Medicine Master Qin couldn't remain calm. He had agreed to participate in the competition for the Di family. Therefore, he was very familiar with Di Yunhe and Di Yunhe's alchemy skills. The two of them weren't good at refining herbs. It was already difficult for them to reach the qualified level. However, there was no light. Didn't that mean that they had reached the good level? After all, there weren't many alchemists left who could reach the good level. Seeing Medicine Master Qin's expression change, Di Yunhe sneered, "Medicine Master Qin, you're not the only one who has improved over the years." Hearing that, Medicine Master Qin snorted and covered his unnatural expression. He said mockingly, "So what if you've improved in refining herbs? Aren't you just level 7 alchemists? You don't have to worry about that." Di Yunhe smiled. He wasn't in a hurry to tell Medicine Master Qin that they had become level 8 alchemists. He felt that it would be more interesting to let Medicine Master Qin discover it himself. Bailey Hongzhuang is a doctor. How could she be so skilled in alchemy? Xiao Sou's heart began to waver. She had looked down on Bailey Hongzhuang in every possible way. She didn't expect her to have such results. She couldn't remain calm. Next is a cultivator with a good level. Another voice sounded. Then, the red light began to flicker. When the red light appeared on the tables, the pharmacists' faces were filled with satisfaction. The Ironheart fruit was so difficult to refine. Being able to refine it to 80% was already a very good result, so everyone was very satisfied. Even if it was an 8th grade alchemist, not all of them would be able to refine it to such an extent. As for the better grade of excellent, that was basically the world of 9th grade alchemists. If it had been before, Alchemist Qin would have been all smiles when the red light flashed in front of him. But now, he couldn't bring himself to smile at all. This was because he wasn't able to completely crush the Di family's alchemist in this round. In his opinion, this was something impossible, but it had happened. He didn't even want to look at the faces of Di Yunhe and the others. However, when he looked at the people of the Jun family, he found that they were looking at him as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 47:14. When Medicine Master Qin turned around, his expression became the same as everyone else from the Jun family. That was because Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two did not have any red light flashing in front of them. From the beginning to the end, there was no light in front of their tables. Didn't this mean that they had reached the golden level? How is this possible? If it weren't for the fact that he was standing in front of everyone's eyes, he would have shouted out his thoughts. There was definitely something wrong with the equipment. Bailey Hongzhuang tilted her head and noticed that there was no red light in front of the two elders' tables. She smiled. Second young mistress, it's all thanks to the method you taught us. Di Hengyun smiled and transmitted his voice. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Eighth elder, this is all thanks to your ability. If it weren't for second young mistress's guidance, we wouldn't have been able to do this. At this moment, Di Yunhe was full of admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang, especially when he noticed Medicine Master Qin's expression. It was as if he had seen a ghost. He felt proud and elated. Medicine Master Qin was extremely arrogant in front of them. Because they were not as strong as him, they could only hold their breaths. But now, they could finally return all of this to him. How great was the feeling of being able to hold one's head high. They were now experiencing it for themselves. All of this was given to them by second young mistress. This is impossible. Medicine Master Qin's voice became sharp and filled with incredulity and disbelief. How could Di Yunhe and Medicine Master Qin's refining technique have improved so much in such a short time? The most frightening thing was that Bailey Hongzhuang, this little girl, had actually reached the gold grade. For a moment, he even thought that he might be dreaming. Medicine Master Qin's sharp voice attracted many people's attention. Only then did they realize the situation of the 3D family alchemists. Damn, this is really a huge reversal. Didn't they say that the D family would be done for if they didn't manage to invite an 8th level alchemist? Why doesn't it look like that's the case? That young woman can reach the excellent level? Isn't that too scary? Didn't you say that you came from the lower realms? I'm not too sure about this either, but judging from the reactions of the Jun family and the Xiao family, this is going to be interesting. Everyone sympathized with the D family because they had been tricked by the Jun family and the Xiao family. Now that there was such a big reversal, everyone felt that it was very interesting. More and more people turned their attention to Bailey Hongzhuang. There were only 2 alchemists in their 20s on the field. One was the famous Ouyang Jifeng, and the other was the unknown Bailey Hongzhuang. Ouyang Jifeng also did not have any light flashing in front of him, which meant that he had reached the gold level. No one found this strange. After all, he was a rare alchemy genius in the upper realm. However, such an unknown character like Bailey Hongzhuang also had such results. It was like a stone startling a splash of water. I didn't think that we'd underestimated the second madam of the D family. It looks like she's really capable. I also thought that the D family wouldn't let anyone come up here so casually. It turns out that they're very confident. Every force had 3 quotas, but not all of them were willing to take up these 3 quotas. Therefore, the 3 alchemists of the D family, standing on a high platform, were unique existences. Chapter 47:15. Ouyang Jifeng's gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. He never thought that there would be such an outstanding person among the younger generation. She was younger than him, but her strength had already reached such a level. Could it be that she was even more talented than him? Previously, when he heard Xiao Shou and the others' words, he had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang had only come here because she was trying to seduce Di Beichen. But now, he understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was someone with true strength. For a moment, he was actually somewhat dissatisfied with Xiao Shou. She clearly came here with her true strength, yet she insisted on slandering others. Even if she was the next Saint of Light, it was not good to casually use such a title. As a genius alchemist, he knew very well how much effort one had to put in to achieve such a result. No matter how talented one was, without enough effort, it was absolutely impossible. Just based on this point, he understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely not the kind of person that Xiao Shou was talking about. While Ouyang Jifeng was sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze also landed on Ouyang Jifeng. Then, Ouyang Jifeng smiled and nodded at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang also returned the smile. This scene was not ignored by the crowd. Suddenly, a series of exclamations rang out. One had to know that Ouyang Jifeng was a genius in the limelight. There were many people who were chasing after him. Ouyang Jifeng just smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang. Does this mean that he has acknowledged Bailey Hongzhuang? To be able to obtain Ouyang Jifeng's acknowledgement, this Bailey Hongzhuang really does have some skills. The Xiao family is really spreading rumors this time. It seems that the second young master of the D family is not a good-for-nothing either. After Bailey Hongzhuang proved her strength, all the previous slander was overturned. Only then did the crowd realize that they had completely misunderstood Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun. The Jun family and the Xiao family are really playing dirty. Even if they joined forces, they wouldn't have slandered them like this. I almost believed it. Thinking about it carefully, the Di family is a big family. How could their heir be a good-for-nothing? Everyone understood. When they looked at the Jun family and the Xiao family again, their gazes changed. Jun Xianzhao's expression became extremely ugly. This situation was completely beyond his expectations. He could not understand how Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's results could be so outstanding. According to his previous understanding, it was impossible for the 3D Beichen. After noticing the change in Jun Xianzhao's expression, Di Chuan's lips slowly curved into a smile. Jun Xianzhao, you have to remember our previous bet. I will wait for you to send the quota over. Don't even think about denying it. Hearing this, Jun Xianzhao's expression became gloomy. He sneered. Di Chuan, don't be too proud. You just happen to be good at refining medicinal herbs. There's still 2 more rounds. It's impossible for you to have the upper hand in both rounds. There was an insurmountable gap between a 7th grade alchemist and an 8th grade alchemist. Even if the D family had the upper hand now, he was not so worried. After all, when it came to refining pills, the score difference between a 7th grade pill and an 8th grade pill was huge. Even if the D family had the lead in the first round, they could completely overtake them later. You little brat, I finally understand now. No wonder you are so calm and not anxious at all. Chapter 47:16. Di Xiaofeng smiled. Even though he knew about his family's situation, he didn't expect them to perform so well in the first round. If his father and grandfather knew about this, they would be very happy. How did Hongzhuang do it? Di Zhuai's was the most shocked person in the Di family. Before, he mocked Bailey Hongzhuang for coming here to cause trouble, but Di Beichun refuted him. Because of this, he was very unhappy. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was able to do this, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. I told you before, but you didn't believe me. Di Beichun's voice was gentle. He didn't have a good attitude towards Di Zhuai's. After all, this guy was very rude to Hongzhuang, so he naturally didn't have a good impression of him. Di Zhuai's wanted to continue asking, but when he saw Di Beichun didn't want to talk to him, he could only swallow his doubts. However, his eyes were filled with excitement. He thought that he would embarrass himself here today, but he didn't think that he would be able to shine in the first round. So Hongzhuang really is an 8th realm alchemist. Dai Heoan finally understood. His face revealed a look of realization, and his eyes were filled with apology. Beichun, I underestimated Hongzhuang before. I'm really sorry. Di Beichun waved his hand, not taking it to heart. In fact, when Hongzhuang said this before, almost no one believed her. How on? Don't you think the result is very good? Di Xiaofeng smiled. Hearing this, Dai Heoan's eyes suddenly lit up. So that bet, you and Beichun did on purpose? Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. That's right. Di Zhuai's also heard this, and his face was filled with surprise. If they could win the Jun family spot, then the Di family would be the big winner this time. Next up is the excellent alchemist. The golden light quietly flashed. Just as everyone expected, the tables of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 all flashed with golden light. This ray of light directly extinguished the hope in the hearts of the Di family and the Xiao family. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had actually reached this level. Soon, someone took the white porcelain vase in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and handed it to the 5 judges to determine the score. During this process, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked off the stage. Because the number of contestants had decreased, the things above had to be rearranged. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the first bottle to be taken away was the white porcelain bottle in front of the gold-level pharmacist, followed by the red one. As for the white porcelain bottle, it seemed that he didn't intend to grade it. Di Hingyan on the side seemed to have guessed the doubts in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart, and immediately explained, because this competition only selects the top 100, so the rest basically won't be graded. It's just a waste of time. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She also expected this possibility. Lin Yi greeted Bailey Hongzhuang as soon as she walked down. Her delicate and lovely face was full of excitement. Second cousin-in-law, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. I underestimated you before. If Lin Yi was asked who she admired the most now, it would be Bailey Hongzhuang without any surprise. Whether it was the day she exchanged for the light vine in the underground market or today's performance on the stage, Bailey Hongzhuang gave her a great surprise. Chapter 47:17. Lin Xianxian and Lin Taxing also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. The other party's performance today was really beyond their expectations. Although this was only the first level, they suddenly felt that Bailey Hongzhuang could go all the way to the end through the other party's indifferent and calm face. If that was the case, then Bailey Hongzhuang would be the dark horse in this alchemy competition. Facing Lin Yi's admiring look, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. I just happen to be good at it. I just took a look. There are only a dozen alchemists who have reached the gold level. Except for the extremely powerful 9th level alchemists and a few alchemists who are about to break through to the 9th level. There are only the 3 of you and Ouyang Jifeng left. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang said it so simply, Lin Yi shook her head. She had noticed all this clearly. Now she understood that her second cousin-in-law was a low-key person. If it were someone else, they would have been eager to announce it to everyone with such ability. But her second cousin-in-law was so low-key. Lin Taxing and Lin Xianxian glanced at each other. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. It seemed that everyone's judgment was wrong. Almost everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang only relied on her beauty to get here. In fact, her ability was not weaker than her appearance. Xiao Suo looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was surrounded by the Lin family and the Di family, and a hint of jealousy flashed in her eyes. She really didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang could get such an amazing result in this first level. Recalling her previous words, the current situation made her feel very embarrassed. However, she still didn't believe that Bailey Hongzhuang's alchemy skills were really so powerful. After all, she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was a doctor. Doctors and alchemists had some similarities. Bailey Hongzhuang should only be good at refining medicinal materials. In addition, her alchemy skills were absolutely impossible to reach the 8th level, because such a genius was also extremely outstanding in the upper realm. She did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could do this. Di Yunhe and Di Hingyan looked at each other. Both of them were in a good mood. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, they wouldn't have gotten such a good result in this round. When they thought of the stunned gazes of the crowd just now, they felt a burst of joy in their hearts. These guys were sure that they would be completely wiped out this time, but this situation clearly gave everyone a surprise. Xiao Suo, didn't you think that my second cousin-in-law was just trying to please the crowd? Now open your eyes and see clearly. My second cousin-in-law has real strength, unlike you who only knows how to talk. Lin Yi's eyes were filled with disgust. She raised her chin and looked at Xiao Suo proudly. In the past, she had been very polite to Xiao Suo because of her relationship with the Xiao family. Now that they had become enemies, she naturally wouldn't be polite. Xiao Suo's face suddenly turned cold. It's just the first round. You talk as if you can already get a ranking in this competition. It's ridiculous. At least I'm better than you. Lin Yi shrugged indifferently. Her youthful face was still full of pride. Speaking of which, You don't seem to know how to do this, right? You. Chapter 47:18. Usually, Xiao So didn't feel any problem. But now, with Lin Yi's words, she actually felt that she was not as good as Bailey Hongzhuang. This was something she absolutely couldn't accept. However, facing Lin Yi's words now, she couldn't answer. Seeing Xiao So fall into silence, Lin Yi became more and more proud. So, don't say that you are from the lower realm in the future and look down on the people from the lower realm. I don't see that you are much better than the people from the lower realm. On the contrary, in my opinion, you are not as good as my second cousin-in-law at all. If you put on that high and mighty look again, it will be a joke. Lin Yi's words hit the nail on the head. She didn't leave any face for Xiao So. Lin Yi was a straightforward person. If she liked someone, she liked them. If she didn't like them, she didn't like them. When she thought of Xiao So's aggressive and arrogant look in the D family's elixir shop, she wanted to return all of this back. Lin Yi, don't be too proud. There are still 2 rounds later. If you're too proud, it will be difficult to get off the stage later. Xiao Sudong saw that Xiao So couldn't reply in a word, so he quickly spoke up. Lin Yi shook her head. Don't worry. I will always be proud. Lin Xuanren was also standing beside Di Chuyuan with a smile at this moment. His always calm and steady face was full of surprise at this moment. Chuyuan, you are too unkind. It turns out that you have already prepared a backup plan, and I have been worried. If I had known this, I would have been able to sleep peacefully these few days. He wasn't exaggerating at all. The family with the best relationship with the D family was their Lin family. No matter what happened, they always stood on the same side. Therefore, if the D family was in a disadvantageous situation, their Lin family would also feel the same. Who would have thought that he was so worried about the D family? In fact, all of this was superfluous. Di Qiuan laughed softly. He could hear that while Lin Xuanren's words carried a bit of complaint, there was more joy. Speaking of which, this is all a surprise brought to us by Hongzhuang. In fact, through this incident, we have also seen a lot of things clearly. The reason why I'm hiding it is because of the bet with the Jun family. Di Chu originally hated the Jun family's previous actions the most. The D family had always been magnanimous. He didn't expect that they would suffer such a big loss this time. Thus, when they found out that the 3 participants from their clans had all reached the level of Tier 8 Alchemist, they made a decision. Since the Jun family wanted to exterminate them and not leave a single spot for them, then they would do the same. Not only that, but because Di Beichen and Di Xiaofeng were being chased, they were extremely cautious. Until the last moment, the fewer people who knew about this, the better. Hearing Di Chiyuan's words, Lin Xuanren also understood. He immediately looked at Jun Xianxiao with a playful gaze. In that case, there will be a good show to watch later. Compared to the joy of the D family at this moment, the Jun family was shrouded in a layer of depression. Jun Xianxiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with a gloomy gaze. He really didn't expect this to happen. Previously, he had clearly inquired about the D family situation very clearly. They didn't even have a single Tier 8 alchemist. How could they obtain such an outstanding result? Chapter 47:19. That's right, Alchemist Qin. You said that they were still far away from becoming level 8 alchemists. Why did they perform so well in the first round? Jun Lingxuan was also a little anxious. When he first met Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, he had a faint feeling of uneasiness in his heart. At that time, he felt that everything was very safe and there was no problem at all. However, after what happened today, he suddenly felt that his previous feeling was not wrong. Alchemist Qin's face was also a little ugly. He had always looked down on Di Yunhe and Di Hingyan. Now that they had lost in the first round to the 2 guys he had always looked down on, one could imagine how he felt. At this moment, when he heard Jun Xuanxiao's questioning words, he was very unhappy. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang said, he had no other way out. He could only maintain his relationship with the Jun family. Therefore, he could only patiently explain, "Great Elder, don't worry. What I learned before is absolutely correct. Di Yunhe and Di Hingyun are only level 7 alchemists. As for why they were able to perform so well in this round, I think it's because they are good at this. This kind of situation occurs in every alchemy competition. Everyone has something they are good at. Naturally, it's very beneficial for them to draw this kind of topic. However, there's still 2 more rounds. They can't be so lucky. You can rest assured. Alchemist Qin said with certainty. Looking at Alchemist Qin's confident and assured face, Jun Xianxiao was relieved. What Alchemist Qin said was very likely. He could only sigh that the D family was really lucky this time. Bailey Hongzhuang just looked at Xiao Shou indifferently. She could see the strong disgust and anger in the other's eyes. In response, she just responded with a calm smile. Di Yunhe was strong only because of her family background. In terms of personal strength, she did not take her seriously at all. Even if her current cultivation was weaker than Xiao Shou's, she was still full of confidence. She would definitely surpass her. Sensing Bailey Hongzhuang's extreme confidence, Xiao Shou's eyes flickered. She could clearly see the strong confidence and ambition in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Even her careful state of mind was affected. The most terrifying thing was that the other party gave her a tyrannical aura that pressed forward courageously, causing her to have a feeling that she could not resist. How is this possible? Xiao Shou was secretly shocked, but she did not show it on her face. She began to wonder if this Bailey Hongzhuang really came from the lower realm. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were waiting for the second round of the competition to begin, a figure walked over under everyone's gaze. Looking at the man in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly bloomed into a smile. "Nice to meet you, Ouyang Jifeng." Ouyang Jifeng stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. A polite and calm smile appeared on his handsome and determined face. It was like a wisp of spring breeze, blowing past without a trace. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Bailey Hongzhuang. You're very powerful." Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, Ouyang Jifeng seemed to be even more delighted. "Let's exchange pointers when we have the chance." "It will be my pleasure." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Even though this was her first time meeting Ouyang Jifeng, she had a rather good impression of him. After all, he was someone with true power. It's a promise. Chapter 4720. It wasn't until Ouyang Jifeng left that everyone present reacted. Everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was so outstanding this time that she was likely to be Ouyang Jifeng's opponent. They didn't expect that the two would become friends. Di Xiaofeng looked surprised. This Ouyang Jifeng's character has always been very strange. Most people don't care about him at all. I didn't expect him to take the initiative to meet Hongzhuang at this time. It's really surprising. Not only Di Xiaofeng, but Lin Qianqian and others also nodded. I have seen this Ouyang Jifeng before, but he seems to be only interested in alchemy. He doesn't pay attention to other things at all. Lin Qianqian shrugged. In fact, in their opinion, this Ouyang Jifeng was a complete nerd. Even if a beauty stood in front of him, he would have no reaction. Having said that, no one dared to ignore Ouyang Jifeng, because his strength was as outstanding as his alchemy skills. Second cousin-in-law, it is already amazing that you can become Ouyang Jifeng's friend at this time. Linny couldn't help but smile. Looking at everyone's astonished look, Di Beichun said he took a fancy to Hongzhuang's alchemy skills, so he took the initiative to befriend her. When Ouyang Jifeng came just now, he saw it clearly. The other party's eyes were very clear. Obviously, he didn't have any thoughts. He just took the initiative to befriend Bailey Hongzhuang because he appreciated her alchemy skills. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, thinking about it. Only such a focused mind can do this. The Ouyang family is a very powerful family. Hongzhuang, it is also a good thing that you can become friends with Ouyang Jifeng. Di Qiuan said with a faint smile. Not long after, the voice on the high platform sounded again. The second round of the competition is about to begin. Alchemists who passed the first round, please step onto the competition stage. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the two elders did not delay and immediately jumped onto the stage. Mo Yunjue and the others stood outside, paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. They were happy for her results in the first round. Hong Zhuang is indeed a perverted existence. No matter where she is, she will always be so outstanding. Xiren sighed, his mouth constantly muttering that she was too perverted. I used to think that Hong Zhuang's talent in alchemy was astonishing. No wonder no one in the lower realms was her opponent. It turns out that she was also such a powerful existence in the upper realms. Mo Yunjue's lips curled into a smile. In fact, he should have known that Hong Zhuang had always been this outstanding. It's a pity that we can only watch from outside. We can't go near to cheer her on. Shangguan Ying sighed. Usually, she would always be by Hong Zhuang's side at times like this. It's not bad that we can watch from here. Xiren looked at Shangguan Ying comfortingly. After all, if they suddenly appeared in front of the D family now, it would be very shocking. When they walked onto the competition stage again, compared to the crowded situation in the first round, there were less than half of the people left on the stage. Now, the president of the Radiant Guild will pick the topic for the second round. The president of the Alchemist Guild said. Everyone immediately looked at the president of the Radiant Guild, wondering what kind of topic would be chosen for the second round. Chapter 4721. The second round is a test of knowledge. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be surprised. Testing knowledge? What kind of test was this? After all the alchemists present heard about this test, their expressions became somewhat complicated. I didn't expect to draw such a question. Di Yuna frowned. Every time this test is held, there are always some obscure questions. I wonder what kind of question it will be this time. That's right. This is a test of luck. If you happen to know, you'll be able to answer satisfactorily. If you haven't heard of it, you're done for. Di Hung Yin shook his head and sighed. He didn't know how lucky he was either. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to the conversation between the two elders and finally understood. She couldn't help but ask, does this test require us to answer on paper? Di Yuna nodded. That's right. This test is to test the alchemist's understanding of obscure herbs. However, there are so many herbs in the world, and even more obscure ones. We don't even see many of them on a daily basis, so we don't know much about them. Since this test isn't something we use on a daily basis, we can only rely on luck. Second, madam, you don't have to worry. Actually, many people might not know about it. Di Hung Yun comforted. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She didn't expect this test to be held in such a way. She felt that it was quite novel. Alchemist Qin's mood was complicated. He wanted to win the second round, but he didn't expect this kind of question. This was a test of luck. He couldn't guarantee that he would be better than Di Yunhe and Di Hung Yun. When he thought of this, he felt extremely depressed. Why was everyone helping the Di family this time? If he didn't know that this test was completely fair, he would have suspected that the Radiant Guild's president was colluding with the Di family. To ensure that this test is absolutely fair, we will decide on the questions on the spot. Every alchemist will have a pen and paper in front of them. After we have decided on the questions, everyone can begin to answer. Hearing this, everyone nodded. This was indeed quite appropriate. After waiting for a while, the voice of the Alchemist Association's president sounded out once again. There are a total of 10 questions in the second round. Each question is worth 10 points. 60 points is qualified, 75 points is good, and 90 points is excellent. Now for the first question, please write down the 10 types of medicinal herbs that are incompatible with the sprout of green. Each correct answer will count as 1 point. After the first question was read out, the complexion of the alchemist on the competition platform changed somewhat. I knew that this kind of assessment would have such perverted questions. Di Hung Yun let out a sigh. The green prunus branch was not a common medicinal ingredient, but everyone had some understanding of its properties. But now, they were asked to write down 10 things that could counter each other. This was not easy. The other alchemists also sighed one after another, unable to guarantee whether their judgment was correct or not. Therefore, when everyone below the stage saw the group of alchemists' hesitant or sighing appearances, they understood in their hearts that this competition was not simple. Correspondingly, there were still some pharmacists who calmly started to write their answers. Pharmacists with abundant knowledge wrote even faster. their expressions brimming with confidence. Chapter 47:22. Listening to Xiao Sudong's words, Xiao So also looked up. Sure enough, as Xiao Sudong said, her family's alchemist had already written with confidence. Bailey Hongzhuang, on the other hand, looked hesitant. Seeing this, she couldn't help but show a trace of pride in her eyes. For the other two elders of the D family, she didn't care so much. She cared most about Bailey Hongzhuang. What she wanted was to see Bailey Hongzhuang's defeat, not that all the glory belonged to Bailey Hongzhuang alone. At this moment, everyone in the Jun family's eyes were also tightly focused on the three members of the D family. They had already lost to the D family in the first round. In the second round, they couldn't accept losing again. Fortunately, after looking at them, they found that the three members of the D family didn't write. They all looked a little hesitant. Alchemist Qin was also a little hesitant, but he didn't hesitate for long and soon began to write. In this kind of knowledge assessment, the older the person, the more advantageous it is. After all, they have more time to read books. After all, young alchemists can't be compared with older alchemists. Di Qiyuan said slowly. This situation was also within his expectations. Bailey Hongzhuang was too young. It was already incredible that she could become an 8th-grade alchemist at this age. If she also had some understanding of these unorthodox knowledge, it would be too terrifying. Lin Xuren nodded slightly. Yes, this kind of question is actually more advantageous for older alchemists. You see, the younger alchemists present are basically hesitating. Lin Yi and others were a little worried after seeing this scene. This kind of assessment was really unfavorable for Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but look at Di Beichun and said, Sister-in-law's performance is already very outstanding. It doesn't matter if her performance in this round is not good enough. The 3 rounds of the competition were calculated based on the total score. Even if there were some shortcomings in the second round, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance in the first round could make up for all of it. Seeing this, Di Beichun smiled slightly and said, These questions won't stump Hongzhuang. He and Hongzhuang had been together for so long. It could be said that he knew her alchemy skills very well. The knowledge in the Chaos Ring was already amazing. He believed that there must be other reasons for his wife's hesitation now, not because she couldn't answer. After hearing Di Beichun's words, the Jun and Xiao cultivators on the side sneered in their hearts. Di Beichun, I think you're too confident. Even Jun Lingxuan side and on side, sides, mocks Jun Lingxuan ridiculed. On the stage, Bailey Hongzhuang's hesitant look was clearly seen by all of them. Di Beichun just glanced at Jun Lingxuan faintly. Alchemist Qin, whom you have always praised, doesn't seem to be so sure of the answer. At least it's better than those alchemists in your family who are slow to write. Di Beichun's lips suddenly raised. Young Master Jun, since you were so confident, why don't we bet again? As soon as this remark came out, Jun Lingxuan frowned slightly and said, What do you want to bet? Chapter 47:23. Listening to Di Beichun's incomparably arrogant words, Jun Lingxuan was simply speechless. Just as he was about to angrily refute, Di Beichun's voice rang out again. Since that's the case, how about we bet the storage ring on your hand? Jun Lingxuan was the young master of the Jun family. Naturally, he had a lot of treasures in his storage ring. Storage ring? Jun Lingxuan was slightly stunned. He was very clear about how many valuable treasures he had in his storage ring. What? You don't dare? Di Beichun raised his good-looking eyebrows. If you don't dare, then forget it. Di Beichun's deep eyes were filled with contempt and disdain. He lazily withdrew his gaze. If you don't have the guts, then don't clamor in front of me. It's annoying to look at. After hearing Di Beichun's words, Jun Lingxuan only felt that the opposite party's attitude was like driving away an annoying dog. He was the dignified young master of the Jun family. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? Xiao So couldn't help but speak up after hearing this bet. Young Master Jun, he's just putting up a strong front. Everyone can see that he's bound to lose. Xiao So was already very dissatisfied when she heard that Di Beichen blindly believed in Bailey Hongzhuang. All along, only men had pursued her. It was rare for her to admire a man, but the other party disdained her. Therefore, the better Di Beichun treated Bailey Hongzhuang, the more unhappy she was. Jun Lingxuan originally wanted to agree to this bet. Now that he heard Xiao Sou's words, he didn't hesitate. Since young Miss Xiao thinks so, then I agree to this bet. Jun Lingxuan's face was full of confidence. The Di family was indeed lucky in the last round, but he did not believe that the Di family would be so lucky every time. However, his gaze fell on Di Beichun for a moment before he turned to Di Xiaofeng and said, "You just came from the lower realm to the upper realm. In my opinion, there shouldn't be anything good in your storage ring. If you want to bet with me, then use Di Xiaofeng's ring." Jun Lingxuan was not stupid. On the contrary, he was very smart. Since Di Beichun took the initiative to propose such a bet, he might have already transferred the treasure in the ring. Therefore, he would not accept the ring as a wager. When Di Xiaofeng saw that Jun Lingxuan actually took a fancy to his ring, he was stunned for a moment before he nodded and said, "Okay, I promise you." When Lin Yi saw that Di Xiaofeng actually chose to agree, she couldn't help but say, "Cousin, we don't seem to have the advantage in this second round." In fact, her words were more euphemistic because everyone saw the situation on the dueling platform very clearly. This was equivalent to giving away the ring directly. Jun Lingxuan would not give Di Xiaofeng the opportunity to regret. He immediately said, "It's a deal. It's a deal." Seeing that what was done could not be undone, Lin Yi also sighed. She couldn't help but feel distressed. She knew how many treasures were in Di Xiaofeng's ring. If he lost like this, it was really a pity. "We believe in Di Beichun." Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly. He did have a lot of treasures in his ring, but in order to be able to hold his head high today, everything else was nothing. Lin Qianqian also showed a helpless expression. "AI, you were a little too impulsive." On the dueling platform, just as Di Beichun thought, Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated when she heard this question. Chapter 4724. According to what the two elders had told her before, this topic should be very obscure. Therefore, even though she was confident in her knowledge, she was still a little worried before hearing the question. She was even guessing what kind of strange question would appear in her head. But after hearing the content of the question, she realized that the question was very simple. After hesitating for a while and making sure that she didn't mishear the question, Bailey Hongzhuang began to write down the answer. Very quickly, the second question was read out. What is the effect of the long sea sand? Everyone once again revealed a look of hesitation. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard this question, she didn't find it difficult at all. She was even a little confused. It was clearly a very simple question. Why was everyone so hesitant? Logically speaking, she shouldn't have misunderstood it, right? After a few questions, the audience realized that the alchemists on the stage were writing slower and slower. It was obvious that the questions were getting harder and harder to answer. These questions are too obscure. Many of the medicinal ingredients are no longer seen. Nobody will carefully understand them. Now that they're being tested, many people won't be able to answer. There are also many alchemists below the stage. These alchemists weren't of the seventh realm and were here to watch and learn. Actually, this isn't much. It's fair that everyone can't answer. Didn't you see that the ninth realm alchemist also revealed a look of hesitation? It's a good thing that I don't have the right to participate in this alchemy competition, or else it would be embarrassing if I couldn't answer anything. In this situation where almost everyone was hesitating, one person's actions were very eye-catching. This person wasn't just anyone, it was Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's speed was very fast. The moment she heard the question, she started writing. Everyone was pondering, but she was the only one who was so fast. If Bailey Hongzhuang was an established alchemist, then it would be fine. But she was a newcomer, and a newcomer who performed well in the first round. This made everyone very curious. This girl is writing so fast. Could it be that she can answer this question? It can't be. This is a question that even Ninth Realm alchemists have to think about. Could it be that she's just writing nonsense? I don't think so. Her performance in the first round was very outstanding. There's no need for her to pretend now. After noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, the president of the Alchemist Guild also had doubts in his heart. In fact, as early as the first round, he had already noticed Bailey Hongzhuang. To be able to refine the iron heart fruit to such an extent at such a young age was already amazing. He felt that this kind of thing happening to Ouyang Jifeng was very normal, because they called Ouyang Jifeng an alchemy genius that was hard to come by in 1,000 years. Bailey Hongzhuang was younger than Ouyang Jifeng, but she could do this. How could they not be surprised? He originally had the intention of getting to know Bailey Hongzhuang. If the other party was really an alchemy genius, then their alchemist guild couldn't miss this opportunity. Second cousin-in-law, can't really be that abnormal, right? Lin Yi was secretly stunned. She looked at Di Beichun incredulously. These questions are so difficult. Can second cousin-in-law answer them? Chapter 4725. Looking at Di Beichun's doting look, Lin Yi and Lin Xianxian couldn't help but look at each other and shook their heads helplessly. He is really the second cousin who dotes on his wife. Obviously, no matter who it is, in the eyes of Di Beichun, Bailey Hongzhuang can't be compared with her. It seems that my previous worries seem to be superfluous again. Lin Yi raised her eyebrows slightly. She was still distressed for Di Xiaofeng's storage ring before, but now she began to look forward to Jun Lingxuan's storage ring. Thinking about it, the treasures in Jun Lingxuan's storage ring would definitely broaden their horizons. Di Xiaofeng also smiled heartily. Sister-in-law really brings us infinite surprises. Lin Taxing secretly sighed. I didn't understand why the Di family would make such a choice before. Now I finally understand. Although Lin Taxing didn't say it out loud, everyone present understood what he meant. Thinking back to the time when the Di family chose Bailey Hongzhuang without hesitation and gave up Xiao So, this was an incomprehensible choice in everyone's eyes. Now, they suddenly understood. Jun Lingxuan was originally very happy. He could get Di Xiaofeng's storage ring, which was a big profit. But as the more questions came out, the more unnatural the smile on his face became. Because he clearly saw Alchemist Qin frowning and thinking, and Bailey Hongzhuang's relaxed indifference. He couldn't help but feel nervous. Young Master Jun, don't worry. Xiao Seiwu couldn't help but say, in my opinion, this Bailey Hongzhuang is most likely just pretending. Maybe she thought that this kind of question could be written randomly and have a chance of getting it right. Hearing this, Jun Lingxuan nodded slightly. That's right. As Bailey Hongzhuang wrote down the answers to the 10 questions, she noticed that the alchemists around her were still thinking. At this moment, she already understood that most of these herbs were herbs that appeared in the past. They rarely appeared now, but thousands of years ago, they were herbs that were often used. It was precisely because of this that she felt that it was very simple, but to others, it was very obscure. Thinking of this, the corner of her lips could not help but reveal a faint smile. It seemed that the heavens were really on her side. Originally, in her view, wanting to pull apart the gap with other alchemists was not easy. But after this hurdle, it seemed that she could already pull apart a considerable gap. Since the slots to enter the immortal cloud mystic realm were so important, the more, the better. When she turned her head, she found that the two elders were also worried at this moment. The pen in their hands fell down hesitantly. Obviously, they were not sure of the answer. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but inwardly sigh. It was a pity that she could not cheat. Otherwise, she could directly tell the two elders the answer. Then, they would definitely achieve good results in this pill refining competition. It wasn't that she didn't have such thoughts, but since the alchemy competition had existed for so many years, there was already a set of rules. Cheating would probably be discovered immediately. By then, not only would her results be invalidated, but her family would also be implicated. Naturally, she wouldn't do anything unnecessary. Boom! Another resounding voice came over, reminding the alchemist that the time was up. Everyone stopped what they were doing, but there were still a few alchemists who wanted to answer. In the next moment, the paper in front of him was ignited and turned into ashes, leaving nothing behind. He had naturally lost the right to answer. Chapter 4726. Compared to the first round of tests, the pill refiners on the competition stage were all holding their breaths, their faces filled with anxiety. Because in the first round, they were very clear about their results. But for the second round, they were not clear about their results. If they were not careful, there was a possibility that they would fail miserably. The people on the viewing platform were equally anxious. The quota to enter the Divine Cloud Mystery Realm was very important to the great families. Once their own pill refiner was eliminated, they would have to pay an even higher price to exchange for the quota from the other families, and would even owe them a great debt of gratitude. Most importantly, even so, they could not guarantee that their own families would be able to exchange for the quota. Actually, in every pill refining competition, the one thing that everyone does not hope for the most is to test their knowledge. This is just too reliant on luck. Even a 9th grade pill refiner could fail miserably. Isn't that so? Even the pill refiners on the stage are looking worried. The way I see it, the number of people eliminated in this round is going to be terrifying. Hearing the discussions of the pill refiners below the stage, Dichun's eyes could not help but show a trace of worry. Before this, he had heard the two elders mention that they hoped that they would not be tested on their knowledge. But it just had to happen. One must know that once one is eliminated, there would be no results at all. It was not just the D family. The Jun family, Xiao family, and Lin family's elders were all worried. They did not even ask for a good result, as long as they did not get eliminated. Young Master Jun, don't worry. That Bailey Hongzhuang will definitely not stay. Xiao Sudong could not help but say. Xiao Soa nodded as well. No matter how calm she appears now, the results later on will not lie. Seeing that everyone was so certain, the tension in Jun Lingshuan's heart relaxed a little. After all, he had a lot of cultivation resources in his ring. He had come here this time to enter the Divine Cloud Mystery Realm, so his family had placed the resources into his ring early on. If he were to lose this bet, then his precious cultivation resources would be gone. What's more, it would benefit Di Beichun and Di Xiaofeng. Soon, a black light flashed on the competition stage. After a series of rapid flashes, a black light flashed in front of many alchemist tables. Even though everyone had already expected the elimination rate of this competition to be shocking, they still couldn't help but be dumbfounded when they saw it with their own eyes. More than half of the alchemists were directly eliminated in a vast expanse of black light. Noticing this scene, everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air, followed by lamenting. After Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the frightening elimination rate around her, a trace of astonishment flashed through her bright, pitch-black phoenix eyes. It seemed that this question really stumped the majority of alchemists. She hurriedly looked at the two elders behind her. After discovering that the two elders had not been eliminated, she could not help but let out a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as he wasn't eliminated. Di Yunhe and Di Hingyun were worried as well. They didn't know if their answers were correct or not. Fortunately, they weren't eliminated, so they were relieved. Whether it was the Jun family or the Xiao family, everyone was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang would be eliminated. However, when they saw that the black light did not flash in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's table, everyone was stunned for a moment. Chapter 4727. Xiao Sou couldn't understand. No matter from which point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang was bound to lose. Why did she persist? It was impossible for her to believe that Bailey Hongzhuang was really a powerful alchemist. She didn't believe that a woman from the underworld would have such talent. However, she didn't know how to explain everything in front of her. Jun Lingshuan's complexion changed after noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. However, after noticing that Alchemist Qin was not eliminated, he was quietly relieved. At least, the result was not clear yet. Second cousin-in-law is really not eliminated, Lin Yi exclaimed. Her delicate little face was full of excitement. Second cousin-in-law knows a lot. Lin Xuanren also breathed a sigh of relief. Their family's alchemist was also not eliminated. In my opinion, I am afraid that 80% of the alchemists are still at the qualified level. Lin Xuanren's face was filled with emotion. It was already very good to pass this kind of unorthodox assessment. Di Qiuan nodded slightly. Not bad. Today's results have exceeded my expectations. I just don't know who will win the bet between Beiqin and Jun Lingxuan. Lin Xuanren chuckled. They also heard clearly when Di Beiqin and Jun Lingxuan made a bet. The younger generation has their own ideas, but I believe that Beiqin will win. Initially, when he heard that Di Beiqin made such a bet, he was a little worried. But after thinking about it, he still did not intervene. The younger generation had their own ideas. What's more, this was a bet between the two outstanding children of the two families. As an elder, if he intervened, he would lose Di Beiqin's face. Compared with some losses, Di Beiqin's face was equally important. As everyone knew, Di Beiqin would be the next family master of the Di family. Not only that, during this period of time, he discovered that Di Beiqin had many outstanding characteristics. Some of the things that they didn't understand before now seemed to be Di Beiqin's way of doing things. Therefore, he chose to believe in Di Beiqin. Even though the outcome of the battle had yet to be decided, he still believed in his young master's judgment. Jun Xianxiao looked at the confident Di Beiqin and couldn't help but frown. Ever since Di Beiqin and Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Originally, he thought that it was a mistake for the Di family to bring Di Beiqin back. How could a child who had been wandering outside for so many years be able to take on such an important role as the young master? However, the more he learned, the more he felt that these two people were not simple. Was the Di family really that lucky? Even though they had been wandering outside, they had still grown into such an outstanding person. Soon, the white light began to flash. When the white light stopped, everyone found that most of the qualified alchemist tables were shining with white light. Alchemist Qin's table was shining with white light. Although he was looking forward to a better result, he also knew that it was good enough to achieve a good result. After knowing the result, he immediately turned to look at the alchemists of the Di family. When he noticed that Di Yunhe and Di Hingyun were both shining with white light, Alchemist Qin couldn't help but feel relieved. At least everyone was the same. Chapter 4728. However, before Alchemist Qin could completely relax, he realized that there was no light in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's table. Alchemist Qin's eyes widened as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang's table in a daze. He even suspected that the light was broken. It was such a difficult question that they needed to think for a long time. How could Bailey Hongzhuang's score be higher than theirs? When Di Yunhe and Di Hongyun saw Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, they looked at each other and smiled. In their hearts, Bailey Hongzhuang was much stronger than them. She could help them advance with just a few pointers. It was natural for her to perform well. Di Beiqin's lips curled into an evil smile. He opened his right hand and said to Jun Lingxuan, "Storage ring." Jun Lingxuan was still in shock. When he heard Di Beiqin's teasing words, his face darkened. He turned around and looked at Di Beiqin. His sharp eyes stared at him as if he wanted to see through his thoughts. Unfortunately, he could not see anything from Di Beiqin's eyes. He could only see calmness and indifference. "You two are in cahoots, aren't you?" Jun Lingxuan's face was filled with anger. When he recalled Bailey Hongzhuang's previous behavior, it was obvious that they were in cahoots with each other to trick him. If Bailey Hongzhuang could answer his questions, why did she pretend to be hesitant? When he agreed to the bet with Di Beiqin, Bailey Hongzhuang answered his questions faster. He would not believe that the two of them were not in cahoots. Xiao Sou's face darkened when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. Because it wasn't only Medicine Master Qin who had such a result, his own Medicine Master also had such a result. Bailey Hongzhuang was actually better than the Medicine Master he had always respected. When she saw that Jun Lingxuan had lost the bet, she felt even more unhappy. After all, she had urged Jun Lingxuan to agree to the bet. Now that the other party had lost, she also had a certain degree of responsibility. "What you're doing is too despicable," Xiao Shou said angrily. Hearing this, Di Beichen looked at Xiao Shou indifferently and then sneered. "In terms of despicableness, I can't compare to you." As soon as he said this, Xiao Shou's voice froze. Lin Xianqian also walked out and looked at Xiao Shou provocatively. "Let's not talk about the fact that we didn't scheme at all. Even if we did, so what? Compared to your actions, we are simply too kind, aren't we?" Jun Lingxuan's expression was ugly. Although he had used Medicine Master Qin's matter to trick the Di family, he had also become the subject of ridicule. Originally, he thought that if he could trample the Di family under his feet this time, it would be worth it even if he became the subject of ridicule. But looking at the current situation, his confidence was getting lower and lower. "Enough nonsense. Hand over the ring." Di Beichen's voice was gentle. In front of so many people, young Master Jun wouldn't be thinking of reneging on the bet, right? It's not strange for him to renege on the bet. In any case, we have already seen how thick-skinned the other party is. Di Xiaofeng mercilessly added a stab. This young master is not someone who can afford to lose. Jun Lingxuan shouted angrily and immediately took off the ring and threw it to Di Beichen. Di Beichen took the ring and said, "Since you're so straightforward, you should directly remove the restriction." "You." Jun Lingxuan gnashed his teeth and looked at Di Beichen, but he still removed the restriction on the ring. Chapter 4729. After the white light settled down, a red light flashed. In a short period of time, the entire competition platform flashed with white and red light. Ouyang Jifeng looked at the red light flashing in front of the table, and he sighed secretly in his heart. Even though he had read a lot of books, he could only go so far in this level. Although it did not meet his expectations, it was still not bad. Turning his gaze slightly, he found that the tables of the few ninth-grade alchemists were also flashing with red light. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems that the alchemist with the best results can only reach good. However, when the whole audience was flashing with light, a dim spot became more eye-catching. After Di Xiaofeng froze for a moment, he looked straight at Bailey Hongzhuang. His handsome face was full of astonishment. His lips were slightly open, but he couldn't speak for a while. At this time, Lin Yi on the side couldn't help but exclaim, "Quick, look at the second cousin-in-law." If there were still people who didn't notice this situation before, after Lin Yi's shout, everyone's eyes turned to Bailey Hongzhuang. Because only Bailey Hongzhuang was left in the audience at this moment, the light in front of the table was not on. The audience was in an uproar. No way. Bailey Hongzhuang actually defeated the ninth-grade alchemist and Ouyang Jifeng? Isn't it said that this kind of question is very difficult, and the younger the alchemist, the less likely it is to have an advantage? Bailey Hongzhuang can actually reach excellent? It's terrifying. There is really a dark horse in this alchemy competition. For a time, everyone present was dumbfounded. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was good before, no one would think that she might be better than Ouyang Jifeng. And now, at least for this round, her results had surpassed Ouyang Jifeng's. After Ouyang Jifeng saw that the light in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's table was not on, his pupils shrank a little. His firm and calm face finally showed a trace of fluctuation. As early as seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, he already knew that the former was a capable person, but judging from the current situation, it seemed that he still underestimated her. If Jun Lingxuan felt a little unconvinced when he lost this bet before, then looking at this scene now, he didn't know what to say. An indescribable shock spread in his heart. He couldn't imagine that this woman could do this. Is she really from the lower realm? Even in the upper realm, there is no genius who can compare with her. As he thought about this, Jun Lingxuan couldn't help but look at Xiao Shou, who was next to him. Previously, he thought that the Di family had made a stupid move by giving up on Xiao Shou. However, looking at it now, he suddenly felt that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't any weaker than Xiao Shou. In fact, she was even stronger than Xiao So. Even though this alchemy competition wasn't over yet, he already felt that Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be able to enter the top 100 and fight for a place for the D family. Xiao So also felt as if she had been dealt a heavy blow. Looking at the white figure on the high platform, she could no longer maintain her previous arrogance. The strength that the other party had displayed made it impossible for her to continue mocking them. That would only make her look worse. Bewitching stared at Bailey Hongzhuang on the high platform. His deep, black eyes were sparkling. His wife had always been this outstanding. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at Bewitching. Even though there were people around them, they only had eyes for each other. Chapter 4730. Who said that the second young master of the D family is a good-for-nothing who is obsessed with beauty? His wife is clearly a combination of beauty and strength. With such a beauty, I would rather be a good-for-nothing. This is a true beauty that can topple a city. There are many beauties who came to watch the alchemy competition this time, but since the appearance of this Bailey Hongzhuang, I feel that no woman can compare with her. The men present couldn't help but speak up. Born in the upper realm, they had seen a lot of beauties, but none of them could compare with Bailey Hongzhuang. They only felt that after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, the beauties they thought of before could not be called beauties at all. If everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was only beautiful before, it was still a notch weaker. Judging from the current situation, Bailey Hongzhuang was a more talented alchemist than Ouyang Jifeng. Marrying such a beauty was definitely a gain. For a time, Bewitching had become the object of envy of the men present. It was a great fortune in life to have such a beauty. Bewitching calmly accepted the envious gazes around him. He was most fortunate that he went to Fengbo country. If there was no calamity at that time, his life would be bleak. Second cousin, I suddenly feel that the men around me are looking at you with hostility. Lin Yi couldn't help but say. Even if she just stood beside Di Beichan, she could feel the unfriendly light around her, which made her feel uncomfortable. Di Xiaofeng also chuckled. I am afraid that your second cousin will become the object of everyone's jealousy now. Let's be jealous. Di Beichan's lips curled up slightly, and his handsome face was full of confidence. After noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, the president of the Alchemist Guild, Lu Yuhai, also showed a hint of surprise in his eyes. President, this young girl is not simple. She can achieve excellent in such a difficult question. As one of the judges, the honorary president Xue Changdong had a look of astonishment on his face. One had to know that even they had to look up information to determine the answer to this question. Bailey Hongzhuang was actually able to answer it directly. This level of knowledge was simply too shocking. Li Yuhai nodded. He is indeed a genius. Logically speaking, we should have noticed such a genius long ago. Why we never heard of him? As the Alchemist Association's chairman, he had always cherished talents and liked this kind of talented youngsters the most. President, this person is the young mistress of the D family. I heard that she came from the lower world. I didn't expect her to have such amazing attainments in alchemy. Of course, there were some well-informed people in the crowd. The D family had caused such a big commotion this time. It was hard not to attract attention. In addition, the D family, the Jun family, and the Xiao family had all changed during this period of time. Therefore, everyone was well aware of the situation. From the lower realms, Lu Yuhai was even more surprised. He was very clear about the level of alchemy in the lower realms. It seems that this Miss Bailey is also a very outstanding person in the lower realms. The D family is really not simple. Even if the young mistress of the family has been away for so many years, she is still very outstanding after returning. Indeed, the D family's position has been stable for so many years. Naturally, they have their reasons. Everyone nodded and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a glimmer of light in their eyes. Chapter 4731. As soon as he said this, Lu Yuhai and the others showed an expression of approval. They all wanted to see Bailey Hongzhuang's answer sheet, but they didn't know to what extent she would be able to answer. We'll find out soon enough. Lu Yuhai chuckled, and in his mind, he had already made up his mind. Once he received the paper, he must first check Bailey Hongzhuang's answer sheet. Next up is the golden light for excellent answers. It seems that everyone already knows the results because there is no one else here other than the D family's Bailey Hongzhuang. Lu Yuhai stood on the high platform and spoke in a calm, yet joyful voice. Hearing this, everyone nodded. There was no suspense in this answer. However, everyone was more concerned about the Alchemist Association's president's attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, Lu Yuhai had deliberately mentioned Bailey Hongzhuang's name. It was obvious that he had already noticed her. Everyone secretly sighed. Once a genius like Bailey Hongzhuang was discovered by the Alchemist Association, they would definitely want to nurture her well. Come to think of it, when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang this time, she was still a nobody. The next time they saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she would probably already be a famous person who was not inferior to Ouyang Jifeng. Following the flash of a golden light, everyone noticed that the light in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's table had lit up. However, when they saw this golden light, everyone's faces couldn't help but reveal a trace of doubt. This was because the golden light in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's table was different from the golden light they had seen in the first round. This ray of light was unprecedentedly bright. Even though there were many different rays of light around it, they were all covered by this golden light. Not only that, this ray of light was constantly flashing, as if it was the king of light. At a glance, everyone's attention was drawn to it. Everything around it had become a foil. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally also noticed the light in front of the table. Her clear eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. This was her first time participating in the alchemy competition, so she didn't know much about the situation. What was going on in front of her? Everyone in the audience was dumbfounded after seeing this scene. They had never seen such a situation before. Why is this light like this? How strange. Xiao Sudong said with a strange expression. Xiao Suo noticed the astonishment on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, and she couldn't help but have a thought. Could it be that the instrument made a mistake? Following Xiao Suo's words, the eyes of everyone in the Jun family lit up. It was hard for them to accept Bailey Hongzhuang's excellent results. On the contrary, if the results were wrong, everyone would think it was normal. The disciples of the Lin family and Xiao family couldn't help but worry. It wasn't easy to get such good results, so they didn't want anything to happen. When the leaders of the various large guilds noticed this scene, they were all stunned for a moment. After looking at each other, a trace of disbelief appeared in their eyes. This result is really a little scary. The leader of the Radiant Guild, Lu Hongwei, couldn't help but say. Lu Yuhai nodded. If everyone hadn't seen this with their own eyes, he would have thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. Chapter 4732. Seeing that everyone agreed with her conjecture, Xiao Suo's pale face gradually showed a trace of a smile. If that was the case, then all the praise that Bailey Hongzhuang had just received was fake. That would make it easier for everyone to accept. Just as the voices below the stage were getting louder and louder, Lu Yuhai stood up. He raised his hands, and the crowd instantly quieted down. I'm sure everyone feels that the light in front of Medicine Master Bailey is very strange. In fact, when we first saw it, we were also stunned. It has been a long time since such a result appeared. In the history of the alchemy competition, such a light would only appear when there is a full score. Lu Yuhai was still explaining, but in the minds of everyone present, there was only one word: full score. This was a light that would only appear when there was a full score. Not only did Bailey Hongzhuang not fail to achieve such a score as they had expected, but she also got a terrifying full score. It had always been regarded as the most difficult test for medicine masters, and it was extremely difficult to get a good score. However, Bailey Hongzhuang actually got a full score. The tens of thousands of people in the square instantly quieted down. Everyone was immersed in the shock of this result. When everyone came back to their senses, there was a series of gasps coming from below the stage. Full score. I have never heard of anyone getting a full score in this test. Today is really an eye-opener. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, who would believe it? All the medicine masters stopped it good, but Bailey Hongzhuang actually got a full score. What kind of brain does she have? Everyone from the Jun family and the Xiao family froze. This result was too big a blow to them. Xiao Sou's face became even uglier than before. She really wanted to find a hole to hide in. Bailey Hongzhuang actually got a full score. Di Yunhe and Di Heng Yin also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. Even though they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was amazing, this result was too shocking. Medicine Master Qin was speechless. He couldn't understand how the Di family managed to find such a crazy daughter-in-law. Di Chuyuan and the others were no less shocked than the others. Even they did not know that Bailey Hongzhuang was this powerful. Looks like everyone has underestimated the Di family this time. It's very likely that the Di family is the biggest winner in this competition. I don't know why the Xiao family decided to break with the Di family at this time. If they didn't do so, they could still get some places from the Di family this time. The worst is the Jun family. If they lose to the Di family this time, then they won't even have a single spot. When Xiao Jinfeng saw that everyone was talking about his family, he felt depressed in his heart. Before this, he knew that the Di family had no chance of making a comeback. He didn't know why the situation suddenly changed, which caught him off guard. Originally, he was still thinking that he had made a wise choice. In just a short period of time, all the advantages were on the Di family's side. On the contrary, their situation had become very bad. Most importantly, the Xiao family had now become a joke in the eyes of others. Xiao Shou also noticed a change in Xiao Jinfeng's expression and felt helpless. Great Elder. Chapter 4733. As soon as he said this, Xiao Shou's face turned even uglier. Her half-opened lips gradually closed, and she looked as if she had lost her soul. Even though the alchemy competition hadn't ended yet, judging from the current situation, the Di family's performance this time wouldn't be bad. Most importantly, Bailey Hongzhuang was now the center of everyone's attention. In the future, she would probably become a well-known figure. Just this point alone was enough to make her unhappy. Jun Xuanxiao's face turned from happy and complacent to gloomy. The more time passed, the more he didn't want to talk. When Medicine Master Qin walked down, he looked at Jun Xianxiao. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He couldn't help but lower his head. When he went up on stage, he said that he would definitely defeat the Di family's medicine master. He didn't expect the result to be like this. He felt that he had lost face. However, this situation was really beyond his expectations. Who would have thought that the Di family's little girl would be so terrifying? Let alone him. No one present had expected this. Everyone in the Jun family remained silent. The group of disciples even looked at the great elder's expression from time to time. Jun Zitao couldn't help but feel nervous. He thought that he had gained a big advantage in the bet with Di Beichen. However, judging from the current situation, he might have made the wrong decision. If they really lost this time, then their Jun family wouldn't have a single spot. This spot was very important to them. He had been looking forward to participating in the Immortal Cloud secret realm for a long time. Most importantly, their family had spent a lot of effort to obtain this spot. If they ended up with nothing, then they would become a joke in everyone's eyes. Di Chuyuan didn't forget to add insult to injury after seeing the gloomy atmosphere in the Jun family. Elder Jun, it seems that you won't be able to have the last laugh in this alchemy competition. Hearing this, Jun Xianxiao only glanced at Di Chuyuan coldly. He didn't answer. He only lowered his voice and said to Medicine Master Qin, who was next to him, "You must win this last round." He wasn't very optimistic because Bailey Hongzhuang's performance in the second round was too outstanding. Just catching up with the points they had surpassed in the second round was already a very difficult task. He knew that the scales of victory were tilted towards the Di family. However, he would not give up until the very last moment. This was because none of the three alchemists from the Di family had reached the 8th rank. This was their only hope. Medicine Master Qin nodded, but his forehead was drenched in cold sweat. He felt that the Hongzhuang in this version of the game was a freak. It was too difficult to defeat her. However, he couldn't say it directly in front of Jun Xianxiao, so he could only force himself to agree. Di Chuyuan saw that Alchemist Qin was no longer as confident and arrogant as he used to be. The smile in his eyes deepened. He said, "Alchemist Qin, you must perform well in the last round. Don't lose. Otherwise, the Di family will lose." As soon as he said that, everyone from the Di family understood what the Great Elder meant. Smiles appeared on their faces. "That's right. Medicine Master Qin, you have to help the Jun family get as many spots as possible in this round. That way, we can have the best harvest." Di Xiaofeng chuckled. Chapter 4734. Looking at Jun Xuanxiao's angry face, Di Chuyuan said casually, "How could I be earlier than you? What a joke." Jun Xuanxiao's expression froze. They were the most complacent ones before this. Before the competition had even started, they had already determined that they were the winners. Who would have thought that the Di clan would give them such a resounding slap in the face? When Murong Jing saw this, he was completely relieved. "It seems that you don't need to worry at all. I'll go first. I'll find you after the competition." Di Xiaofeng nodded with a smile. "I'll treat you to a drink after the competition. It's a deal." Soon, the third round of the competition began. At this moment, there were only about 200 alchemists left on the high platform. If it were in the past, there would be at least 500 alchemists left in the third round. However, because the elimination rate in the second round was too high, there were only so many alchemists left. The third round of the competition is very simple. Every alchemist needs to refine the highest level of elixir they can refine. However, you only have one chance. Start now. Obviously, everyone already knew the content of the third round of the competition. They began to refine the elixir they were best at. Di Yunhe and Di Hingyan looked at each other. They had just become level 8 alchemists. They had also successfully refined level 8 elixirs, but the level was not high. Therefore, they chose to refine level 8 elixirs at this moment. Bailey Hongzhuang did not start refining immediately. Instead, she was thinking about what kind of elixir she should refine. Compared to the previous 2 rounds, the third round of the competition was undoubtedly the easiest to increase the score. Most importantly, there was no elimination in the third round of the competition. Therefore, any kind of score was possible. Although she was not sure how many points there would be between the 2 levels, it would not be a small difference. There were several level 9 alchemists present. They must refine level 9 elixirs. However, she was only a level 8 alchemist. She could not compete with them in this aspect. In this way, if she wanted to get a better score, she had to work hard on the choice of elixir. After pondering for a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang chose the pill she wanted to refine, the 8 Revolutions Bodhi pill. The 8 Revolutions Bodhi pill was a very famous pill among Tier 8 pills. It could help a cultivator stabilize their cultivation. Most importantly, while stabilizing their cultivation, it could also help a cultivator increase their potential. Many cultivators were stuck at a bottleneck and were unable to break through. This was because there were some hidden dangers in their previous cultivation that affected their chances of breaking through. Generally speaking, under such circumstances, even if they consumed pills that could help them break through, it would not have much effect on them. However, the 8 Revolutions Bodhi pill could do it. It was precisely because of this that the 8 Revolutions Bodhi pill was a pill that many cultivators desired. However, in the long flow of history, the 8 Revolutions Bodhi pill's pill formula was lost. If Bailey Hongzhuang was representing herself in the competition, she would definitely not choose to refine such a pill, because she was very clear about the allure of this pill to everyone. However, she now had the Di family behind her, so she didn't have to worry and could boldly refine them. This was the difference between having a backer and not having one. Chapter 4735. After deciding to refine the 8 Revolutions Bodhi pill, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer hesitated and quickly began to refine it. The competition stage suddenly quieted down. Apart from the occasional sound of refining medicinal herbs, there was no other sound. Below the high platform, Xiao Soa looked at the clan's alchemist who had been eliminated in the second round and could not help but ask, "Can you tell what grade of pill Bailey Hongzhuang is refining?" She had no understanding of pill refining, and even if she watched the other party refine the pill, she would not be able to tell. However, she was really curious as to what grade of alchemist Bailey Hongzhuang was. "Eldest miss, the medicinal herb she took out made it impossible for me to determine the pill formula." Xiao Honghua looked a little embarrassed. Xiao Sou frowned. "What do you mean? How can you not be able to determine it?" Xiao Honghua was their clan's 8th grade alchemist. Logically speaking, he should be able to determine the type of pill the other party was refining based on the medicinal herbs she took out. "I've never seen this type of medicinal herbs or pill formula before." Xiao Honghua was also very puzzled by this point. Logically speaking, whether it was a 7th grade or 8th grade pill formula, he was basically familiar with it. As long as the other party took out the medicinal herbs, he would be able to determine the type of pill the other party was refining. However, when he looked at the medicinal herbs Bailey Hongzhuang took out, he was unable to determine the type of pill it was. There were only 2 possibilities for this situation. The first possibility was that Bailey Hongzhuang was a 9th grade alchemist, and she was refining a 9th grade pill, which was why he did not know. The second possibility was that Bailey Hongzhuang was refining a long-lost pill or a new type of pill, which was why he did not know. No matter which of the 2 possibilities, Xiao Honghua felt that it was impossible. However, he could not think of a third possibility. Hearing Xiao Honghua's words, Xiao Sou could not help but stomp her feet. She was simply about to die from anger. Until now, he still could not figure out Bailey Hongzhuang's background. Most importantly, his own clan's alchemist could not even determine the type of pill the other party was refining. "Then do you know what grade of pill she refined?" Xiao Sudong couldn't help but ask. Xiao Honghua pondered for a moment and said, "Based on the types of medicinal herbs she took out, it should be a grade 8 medicinal pill." As soon as he said this, Xiao Sou and Xiao Sudong couldn't help but look at each other with ugly expressions. Previously, they only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang might not even be able to reach the level of a 6th-tier alchemist. Now, she was actually refining 8th-tier medicinal pills. Was this a joke? Since when was it so easy to become an 8th-grade alchemist? The members of the Jun family also heard Xiao Honghua's judgment, and their complexions turned extremely ugly. So the D family had already planned this all along. Jun Xuanxiao's face darkened. "I always thought that the D family didn't have a level 8 alchemist. It turns out that Bailey Hongzhuang is a level 8 alchemist. No wonder they agreed to this bet. It seems that they did it on purpose." Jun Lingxue nodded. "When I saw Bailey Hongzhuang before, I had an ominous premonition. Now, it seems that my premonition was right. Great Elder, what should we do now? If Bailey Hongzhuang successfully refines an 8th-tier medicinal pill, then they will definitely win this competition," Jun Zitao said worriedly. Compared to the complacency he felt when he first mentioned this bet, he was now only worried. Jun Xianxiao fell into silence. There was nothing they could do now. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.